a number of commentators have expressed concerns about the impacts that the proposed merger could have on certain so-called hub airports. For example, the new merged combined American Airlines would have nearly 70% of the available slots at Reagan National Airport. Critics suggest that this combined power could allow the new American Airlines to raise prices because competitors wouldn't be able to compete effectively in those airports. So I've got a couple of questions for Mr. Horton and for Mr. Parker on this point, and I'll ask you to answer these, in that order on each of these. So, given that Reagan National Airport is known as a closed airport, one in which the number of slots is fixed, and it's unlikely to change at least any time in the immediate foreseeable future, would Americans' dominant share of available slots give it, in your opinion, an undue advantage in the marketplace that could lead to increased prices as a result of that undue influence on the market?
Well, we don't think so, and that's because the Washington area, of course, is served by 3 airports, and if you look at the market as a whole, taking into account all 3 airports, the New American would have something on the order of 25% of the capacity. So we think it is a robust and competitive marketplace.
Mr. Parker?
I agree completely. I would point out, even in Reagan, the number of slots I don't think is the right measure to look at for capacity. It's actually the number of seats, because we serve so many small and mid-sized communities out of Reagan versus our competitors. While we have about 2/3 of the slots at Reagan, we have about 50% of the seats. And as Tom notes, this is a market that's intensely competitive, not just because of Reagan, because of Baltimore and because of BWI and Dulles. And when you add those together, even the New American would be smaller than United, about the exact same size as Southwest Airlines in this market.
You're not suggesting the slot question is irrelevant, though. You're just suggesting it's perhaps mitigated by the number of seats.
Yeah, absolutely not. Not suggesting it's irrelevant. It's an issue that should be addressed, and we're happy to have it addressed. I believe that as the committee and the Justice Department looks at the slot issue, they'll come to the same conclusion we have, which is the slots that will be utilized by the New American are used to provide service to smaller communities. That if other airlines were given those slots, they would not go to similar sized communities. They'd be flown to larger markets. Okay. I think that'd be bad for consumers.
Okay, the second part of my question on this slot issue relates to what happened last year when U.S. Air and Delta executed a swap agreement for a number of slots at LaGuardia and at Reagan National. I believe U.S. Air, in connection with that agreement, had to give up 16 slots at Reagan, capping U.S. Air's market concentration at 55%. So that leads to the question in my mind: how many slots is the merged entity prepared to divest? And would you support having another FAA blind auction for those slots? Go ahead.
We don't believe it'd be good for consumers for us to divest any slots. Again, if U.S. Airways or the New American were asked to divest slots, we would, by definition, divest those that are the least lucrative to the airline. Those would tend to be service to smaller communities, to mid-sized communities that we enjoy serving, that we want to continue to serve. But we would be precluded from serving it. Those slots would go to another carrier. The slots that you mentioned, by the way, were auctioned off. JetBlue acquired those. They now serve with those Tampa, Florida, Orlando, San Juan. Very large communities. That's where additional slots divested from us would likely go to. Very large communities, and small communities would be disserviced.
With flights to airports that are already getting a lot of service, in other words.
Pardon me?
With flights to airports that are already getting a lot of service.
Already intensely competitive, already have a lot of service, yes, sir.
Okay. Mr. Horton, you have anything to add to that point?
I think the trading of slots is representative of a dynamic and competitive marketplace, and in fact, American leases some DC slots to JetBlue, and JetBlue leases some slots at JFK to American. So I think it's reflective of a dynamic and competitive marketplace.
Yep. The 2010 horizontal merger guidelines state, quote, "A primary benefit of mergers to the economy is their potential to generate significant efficiencies and thus enhance the merged firm's ability and incentive to compete, which may result in lower prices, improved quality, enhanced service, or new products," close quote. At the same time, the guidelines also make clear that antitrust officials should credit merger-specific efficiencies, that is to say, those efficiencies likely to be accomplished with the proposed merger and unlikely to be accomplished in the absence of either the proposed merger or another means of having comparable anti-competitive effects, only in those circumstances. So what merger-specific efficiencies would you anticipate from this transaction?
Well, Senator, as I described earlier, the American Airlines has embarked on a very successful restructuring here to reduce our costs, reduce our debt, and indeed create a vibrant and competitive airline. Our restructuring has been unique in that it's really all been about renewal and growth, built on our new order for aircraft, over 500 airplanes on order. So it's really been about building and growing and creating a new global competitor. We view the merger with U.S. Airways very much as an extension of that. And so as a consequence, we see a much more efficient airline going forward. And there will be efficiencies to be had in the combination of the two airlines as we think about putting together the headquarters staff, the IT systems, and those sorts of things.
The guidelines also make clear that the efficiencies that have resulted, that have been proven from past mergers, are those that are most likely to be credited. Can you point to any efficiencies that have been obtained as a result of past mergers, for example, from the American TWA merger of 2001, that can support your argument there?
Sure. Really the most obvious and clearest is that you don't need two headquarters functions, so you can largely eliminate that redundant staffing.
Yeah. Anything to add to that, Mr. Parker?
Yeah, well, I think we have efficiencies both in for consumers and the ability to connect to more markets, so much more efficiently. As I noted, markets such as Rochester to Hilton Head, markets such as Dubuque to Yuma, that customers cannot get to on either American or U.S. Airways today. They would now be able to connect efficiently on. Those are real efficiencies that drive the majority of the synergies. On the cost side, as Tom noted, we receive other efficiencies, things like management reductions, IT systems that we're able to consolidate, two systems become one, facilities in certain airports where, we happen to be in different parts of the airport and we consolidate. Those are the largest cost efficiencies. But it's primarily revenue driven by getting more customers onto the combined airlines than either of us can generate independently by being more efficient.
Thank you.
Thank you.